Hey everyone, hold on. We're trying to make this work. Technical difficulties. Says I'm live, trying to determine if that in fact is true. Hey, I see it showing up on LinkedIn. Yes. Okay, one sec. Obviously, we're trying to iron out stuff today. And people are piling in. Yes. Well, great. Let me start this cast by telling you something I didn't expect. Sorry, technical difficulties. We were online a few minutes ago and LinkedIn somehow wasn't connecting. We're using StreamYard, which has been a great tool so far. So apologies for whatever in the back room technicalities weren't working. Hey, how you doing? This is Dr. D coming to you live from Houston, Texas. Where are you? If you're piling in, please tell me where you're coming from. I got to tell you, it's one of the highlights of every single live stream I do is finding out where you are. So let me start with a hey, we're still living in a strange world. I hope you're doing okay. If you didn't hear me say this because of the technical issues a minute ago, let me say it now. I like the fact that I have to remind people as a part of what I do to take care of themselves, to invest in themselves, to seek that smile. You have to really go find inspiration as opposed to waiting for it to happen. And the fact that I have to go tell people that reminds me to do it. So thank you for being a part of my week once again. I appreciate it. Hey, what's happening? Boston, we've got Argentina, New Jersey. Dean, my friend, what's happening? We've got Augustine. Good to see you, sir. We've got Miss... Hey, how are you? How do you say your name? It's an amazing name. You have a name like that, I should know how to pronounce it. Ximena. Miss Triana, hi, how are you? We also got Berlin, Germany. What's going on? Always a diverse group here. That makes me happy. I'm going to share something to start this stream. We'll get to deviance as a topic in just 1 second. Here's a thing that I learned this week that I want to share with you. I cannot overindulge in the news. The news can be heavy. It used to be simple when I was a young adult. Hey, you read the news to keep up on things and be a meaningfully a decent citizen and to have, an ability to have conversations with other humans because they probably read the news too. It used to be kind of that simple, and it's getting more and more difficult, at least in the States, because people here are so strange and polarized in ways that just a few years ago, I think would have surprised us. So I have been resisting what is often referred to as a doom spiral. Have you been there? You start reading the news and you go, what is going on planet Earth? And then you read the next one and the next one, you click, and an hour later, you've read so much negativity. It just makes you feel like you need to take a break or take a shower or something. We'll stop doing that. Let me help you. There are places you can go find positive news. I love positive news. I know lots of places I can go find it. And I like to remind myself of it. Now I'm reminding you. Here's one, kindling.xyz, kindling.xyz. Positive, science-based, interesting, uplifting. Did I say positive? Yes. News that you can believe in, that informs you and uplifts you. That is positive. Okay. Columbia, how you doing? Toronto, Abel, what's happening, man? We got John in Seattle. We got Eureka in Kenya. How you doing? Julie, what's going on in France? Denise from Chicago. Whitney, how are you, madam? Great to see you. This is going to be a fun talk. Let me give you a little context here. I'm hard at work as always, working on the next few courses I want to shoot. And in fact, I think I found a video partner here in Houston. It's not quite official, but I'm going to go ahead and jump the gun and tell you. It's a group called Adhere Creative. I'm very excited about them. They're interesting in a lot of ways, but here's how I knew. This is appropriate, right? Because today's topic is deviance. Here's how I knew that I wanted to try and work with them and see how that felt. It's not just because their product looked good and I enjoyed them personally when I met with them. All that's true, but it's because of a message on their website and on a big wall in their office. And the message is this: do epic shit. I don't normally cuss a whole lot as a part of what I do professionally, but that's a great motto. That's an idea I'd like to be a part of. So I'm looking forward to working with it here in the very near future. All right, a couple of huge projects coming up for me. I've been talking about them and I won't stop. You can't make me. One is the next book called Live Hard, and Deviance, or some take on Deviance, is one of the chapters, one of the topics, and we'll be talking about that today. The other one, some of you have noticed online, I've started talking about, there's a new service coming called Ask Dr. D. Been working on for some time. It's a very simple online community coaching environment where you can get access to like-minded people and yours truly 24/7. Ask a question, and when we get to reading it, well, I'm going to answer it just to you. And just like in YouTube and many other places, you'll see a conversation evolve. That's what this platform is going to be like for a very low nominal monthly fee. I'm excited about it. We're going to get Live Hard launched before the end of the year, and then we're going to launch Ask Dr. D almost immediately. I'm very excited, whether it's my friends online, people I meet through speaking, people who read the books. This is an extra way to take these topics that you know are interesting and important to your career and talk to people about them in a safe and an anonymous way. And by the way, get my take on the issues that you personally are facing. That's Ask Dr. D. More coming soon. Okay, enough preamble, a sip of water, and we shall get deviant. There's Miss Cheryl with the awesome link. Nice video you should check out on that link there in the chat. Hey, from Argentina, what's going on? India, Sindhu, how are you? Philippines, great to see you. This is awesome. So you know what? I don't always know when I talk about some topics exactly how it will be perceived because, well, we all have our cultural biases. If you haven't figured out by now, I reek of Western culture. For better or for worse, that's who I am. And so I have a particular take, if you will, on certain topics. And when I think about creativity and innovation, I could talk about being a change agent and embracing progress and creativity and innovation and change. Or I could say, isn't deviance fun? Isn't deviance necessary? One way to look at your job as a person who pushes for progress in organizational life, a person who wants to get a team not just to meet standards tomorrow, but maybe even rethink those standards. That's progress, that's creativity, that's innovation. It comes in many, many flavors. One way to look at trying to embrace that mentality as a core part of your career is to just admit the fact that you, in fact, are pushing for some deviance. That's right. We all love hierarchies and the status quo. They let the cash cow continue. That's a predictable, a normal, a useful, a good part of business. And it's also a part that becomes so heavy we stop thinking about doing new things that make us relevant next quarter. Relevant, interesting, different next year. So a little deviance is required. I want you to think about the risks involved in doing that, because I could talk about how it's sexy all day long. But the truth is there are risks involved as the primary explanation for why people choose to go safer routes in their daily life and in their careers overall. Now, I'm not going to come down on you. I'm not going to accuse you of playing it safe too often and living boring lives and boring careers. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to challenge you to ask yourself that question. I'm going to ask you to look in the mirror and say, what kind of career do you want? Hey, when you look back, what do you want? I wrote this somewhere recently, and it stuck with me. And this is my spin on someone else's take. You know how knowledge goes. There's not a whole lot new under the sun. Here's my spin. When you're done with your career, you're in the back nine, right? Maybe the last hole. And you're saying, how did I do? What do you want to say? Do you want to say I played it safe, really avoided major catastrophes, no huge errors, and never got in much trouble? Isn't that nice? How copacetic, how smooth? Or do you want to say, you know what? I lost some. I tried everything I wanted to try. I had some huge wins, some big bruises. I fell down more times than average, for sure. But I learned a ton. I tried everything I wanted to try, and I have some big victories I would have never had if I wasn't brave enough to dream, try, fail, and try again. There is no right answer to the question I just gave you, but I got to tell you where my inclination is, obviously, is the latter. And I love pushing people to consider the same because I think it's more interesting. I think it's more fulfilling. And I know organizations need marginally more of this type of voice, this type of spirit inside their hallways at work. So let's think about the risks for just a minute of advocating for change, advocating for creativity and innovation, whether it's a product, a service, a process, one of my favorites, technology, business model, whatever it is. What are those risks? I want you to think about how dangerous it can be, because that's how you get smart becoming a deviant effectively, right? You have to think about these things. And then we'll talk about how you survive as a deviant. But I want you, for a few minutes, for the crux of this discussion, to get comfortable thinking about the risks involved in trying to embrace creativity and innovation, being a change agent. Now, as you're listening, I want you to use that chat. I want you to drop a question or two, because when I'm done ranting in just a few, as always, I will take a question or two, as many as I can, and get to it and give you my 10 cents. And if I miss it, of course, I'll follow up when we're done offline and still trying to answer all of your questions. Listen, I'd like to really put this risk issue in perspective by sharing a short story. It's a version of the story I include in the new book soon to be released called Live Hard, which is about embracing these risks intelligently, living fully in loving some creativity and innovation. Listen, there's a story in there about a few things I did. I'm going to give you just one example of a few things I did to get my students back in the day to understand, beyond the rhetoric of, hey, I love innovation, hey, I love creativity, hey, I'm an advocate for change. Beyond the sexy rhetoric, there's a reality, and I want you to understand it. So here's what I would tell them. I spent 10 very fun years teaching MBA students about simple, practical realities. And now, of course, I get to do it online for you. And I love it. So let me share the lesson I shared with them. Now, this is a very truncated version of the story, but I think you're going to love it. I would walk into class one night with the goal of talking about the topic I've just set up for you, and I would put some things in front of them. I would put, check this out, I would put a bunch of small containers about this big on the table, and there'd be about 50 of them, and fewer than that number of students in the class. And each container had bubble solution and a wand. And I would say to them, I would pull it out and blow some bubbles and make them laugh and look at me strange. We're very used to this in my class. And I would say, okay, here's your task for the night. We'll talk about why we're doing this later. But first, I want you to follow these instructions. When I'm done talking, come down front, grab a bottle just for yourself, leave this classroom. Go find people elsewhere in the business school and share with them bubbles in the amount you see fit. We'll talk later. Try not to get in too much trouble. Have fun. Go. I would tell them to do that, and they would look and feel probably like you're looking and feeling right now. Like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And then they would grab their bubbles and they would walk out of the classroom and start to do things. And here's what happened one night. We had people walking all over the business school blowing bubbles. I mean, come on. This is a childhood activity. This is fun. This is simple. This is not heresy. This shouldn't be risky per se, right? I would watch them. It was amazing what would happen. Here's your first lesson about the risks involved in creativity and innovation. They would go out because I energized them, and then they would stand there and look around at each other like, well, who's going to go first? This is all of a sudden strange, and I feel awkward. And who's going to go first? And one brave person always was there, and they would go first and blow bubbles, and then the second, the third, and then the herd would follow them. And next thing you know, we got bubbles everywhere. Now, I always told them, if you want to impress me, if you really want to impress me, you know what? Bubbles are for everyone. They're beloved by everyone. If you really want to impress me, open a classroom door somewhere else in the building, walk in, and just for a couple seconds, say hello, share some bubbles, and then leave. Sure enough, this one night, a couple people took me up on my suggestion. They opened a door to a room not far from mine. They walked in not far all the way around, just walked in a few feet, blew some bubbles, blew some, walked out. That was it, maybe 5 seconds of interaction with this class. And then finally I went out and I gathered everyone and I got them back into my classroom and I debriefed the activity. And I just started like this. How did it go? Did you have fun? And everyone just looked at me strange. I said, well, did you blow bubbles? Well, yes, we did. I said, who started? One proud guy, same guy I saw who started. He raised his hand. I said, why didn't the rest of you? And they said, well, I felt weird. I said, I gave you permission. They still felt weird. And finally, they admitted this is not socially the thing we always do. It was, say it with me, deviant. It was a deviation. And to embrace that is odd. And it feels odd. And the risk starts with how you feel. And then the risk gets worse. I said, how did people react when you blew bubbles? And they said they looked at us funny. They looked at us strange. And then one woman raised her hand. Never forget this. She told me about a janitor in the building who was upset and later came to talk to me because they thought it was very disrespectful that I would have my students do that because they had just finished using the polisher on the floor. And then here come the students dropping bubble mess all over, making them have to do their job again. But it gets worse, this seemingly simple, fun activity. I got an email late that night from the professor who was in the classroom where the students had walked in. 2 students walked in, 5 seconds, then left, and I got an email. And that email had multiple paragraphs, and this professor, a professor of economics I remember very well, and she was upset, and I had no idea how to teach, but I did have an idea about disrupting her class, etc., etc., and she reported me to the dean. I'm not making this up. Carlos, good to see you, man. I'm glad you remember some of this. I'm not making this up. I was ratted out to the dean by a colleague, and I did the only thing you could imagine I would do the next time I went to class. I had printed out that email and I read it verbatim to my students because I wanted them to remember something. And I've heard from so many of them, I promise you this is practical, simple, useful. They learned the lesson that to deviate from the norm, no matter how little, when it's unexpected in the wrong person's eyes, you catch them in the wrong mood, can be monumentally large in their eyes, and it can have repercussions for you. The risks for you can be significant. They could be people chastising you, saying no, shunning you. It could hurt your reputation. It could hurt the opportunities coming to you later. The question becomes, how do you deviate in the name of innovation and change? How do you deviate in a way that makes people more likely to accept the possibility that you're putting forth? Let me give you, as usual, I have 75 pages of notes and only a few minutes to get with you. I'm going to give you 3 quick ideas, very quick 3, and then answer a question for you before we have to go. Here's the 3 ways you get away with this. And I think there's more answers, but if I only had a few minutes, I would tell you these things. If you want to speak up, give voice to new possibilities, and not be shot down in some painful way that in fact can hamper you long term because you were silly enough to blow the bubbles, think about this. Number 1, earn the right to do it. Number 2, bring friends to a fight. That is always good advice. And number 3, remember that you're there to do the work, not just offer possibilities. So let me go through those very briefly. Number 1, earn the right to say this. Let me just phrase it this way. The higher performer you are, because you are carrying the status quo effectively, meeting expectations effectively as you've been asked to, you've been earning your paycheck times 10, you're performing. Here's expectations. You've been doing this above expectations. You are now a person who's earned some latitude, some wiggle room, some right to say, maybe there's a different way we should think about that thing over there. Be that person, and your odds of being listened to and actually followed up on with engagement, well, the odds go up. That's number 1. Number 2, bring friends. Before you go to a meeting and say, I've been thinking about this, I've got the guts. Here comes my big comment about that thing we just got to consider that we've never talked about. Before you do that, find out how other people feel about it. Find out how others might react to it. How do you do that? Well, you think about the key players who will be involved, who have power over this issue that you're thinking about. Think about the agendas that they have, not just yours. Think about having informal, respectful, private conversations just to float an idea. See how they feel. Maybe if the temperature of the water feels just right, you're going to tell them, I'm actually thinking about bringing this up. Watch them react. If it goes well, you might actually start counting votes, dare I sound like a politician, and telling them, if I was to do this, are you going to jump on and help everyone see that there's a real possibility here? This is not bad behavior. If you do it a little, you do it respectfully, you do it with their interest in mind, not just your interest in mind. This is a healthy, it's called a coalition that you're building. This is a healthy activity. Bring those friends to a conversation. Your odds go up significantly when you start talking about being deviant, poking sacred cows, and advocating for change. And the last one, and this is so big, ladies and gentlemen, there's no magic in most of the answers that I share with people. It's just about honest, practicality. If you're going to be a person that says, we really should consider how come we've been avoiding or whatever it is, great. Bring your friends, make a solid case, be a person they want to listen to, and then get ready to volunteer, because every great idea requires work beyond the minimum. Every great idea requires people to do their job plus. That's what I often call it, job plus mentality. Hey, you want to just love innovation beyond the platitude, beyond the little statement on the website? Great. Get ready to work. I can't tell you that you should sign up for that. I know you're busy and you have outside interests and families and friends. I get that. I am here to tell you that if you want people at work to take you serious when you talk about progress, change, creativity, and innovation, you better be first in line to sign up and be a part of that special project team that's going to explore this possibility or actually tackle this change. If you bring that mentality in there, no one's going to get terribly angry as you start to blow bubbles. No, they're going to go, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Maybe they're even going to grab for a little bottle of solution themselves, because it's about your idea for sure, but it's also about all these framing contextual issues that I'm talking about as to whether or not they're going to take you seriously. Questions? I've got one that popped up about, okay, what about your reputation? You don't want to upset people. How do you do these types of, how do you be this type of person without ruining your reputation? I've got 70 answers to that, but I'm going to give you my favorite. You ready? You're going to find even more time, which is why, side note, time management really should be something you're highly skilled at. Every pro who wants to believe in innovation really has to become a time management pro, so you can get your work done while having the extra amount of time needed to really explore, because exploration is a big part of innovation and creativity and change. So here's the answer. Find even more time, because to make sure they receive you positively isn't always about the idea or the things I just mentioned. It's about how much you've been there to support them and to help them. Let me say that again. If you want to really advocate for change and not ruin your reputation, a lot of it isn't about you. It's about how much you've been there at other times to be supportive and positive, and with your time and labor and brilliance, actually helping others with their work and their change projects that they've been advocating, because that makes you a great colleague. And man, your bubbles look a whole lot more interesting when they think that you are a great value-added colleague. See? No mysteries, practical stuff, I promised you. All right, I'm going to do my slow wrap up, but don't you dare leave yet, because this is important. If you want to find out the latest and have a chance at free sneak peeks and free product from Ask Dr. D, but first, Live Hard, the new book, man, you got to sign up for the newsletter. Head over to drdoit.com if you've not been there for a while. I'm very excited to say my client list there just got one bigger. You'll see Google's logo on there now. I got a gig coming up this month with a bunch of managers at Google I'm very excited about. Keep up with the latest on the blog and an extra blog-like blurb every newsletter for free in your inbox. If you just drop in your email, that will happen. Thanks for being here, which always reminds me I can't just preach about helping people become a better version of themselves. I have to do that too. So thank you. If I didn't get to you this time, just drop me a message online, connect on LinkedIn. I would love to say hello and give you my 10 cents on whatever it is that is vexing you today. Stay happy, stay healthy. See you next time. Bye.